Hello everybody and welcome back inside the box for another episode of Gunpla Kitbash with me, Kukamatsu. In this week's episode we are dealing with the imperfections, so let's jump right in. Right, now we're getting down to the nitty-gritty on this guy. In my previous builds I've always done the fine detail work as I went. So basically I would, if I was doing the shoulder, I painted gray and I'd find all of the imperfections and do it as I went along. And this time I decided to try something a little bit different, which is to do it all now at the end after having done all of the reshaping work. A few reasons for that. One is that I actually just really like to see it in this state where I can see everything that I've done and it's not all painted gray or partially painted gray. The other thing is that if I do it the other way, then I'm constantly taking out the airbrush, doing the paint, doing it as I go. So I use the airbrush, 5 or 6 times throughout the process. This way I'm just going to use it the one time at the end. And the last thing is that, because it's the last step in a week's work, I might maybe rush it a little bit, go a little bit too fast or not as careful as I could be. I want to up my game on the finishing level. So for those reasons, I've decided to do it at the end here all at once. So here we go. So what I'll do is I'll just start by taking off the parts that need to be painted and get them set up for the airbrush. Okay, I'm ready to go. I've got an Iwata Revolution CR airbrush, which I love. And I'm going to be using Tamiya XF77, which is IGN gray. You can basically use any gray, it doesn't really matter what it is as long as it's kind of a middle color. This is what I happen to have a bunch of at the moment, so I'm going to use that. So I'll go ahead and quickly paint all of these parts gray and then we can take a closer look at what needs to be done. Okay, let's take a look. Not too bad overall, but basically the areas I was expecting to be problematic are problematic. It's that inside corner in there that needs some work, and then some just general little spots on the surface. What I've been finding inside this light box that I work in is that actually I can't see the imperfections as well as I would like. So what I did is I bought one of these little work lights, and the idea is going to be that I can actually use it like this and really see the imperfections by having a strong side light like that. And that's going to actually, even just that, it reveals so much more than I can see in any other lighting situation. So I think that's going to be really beneficial in terms of finding the spots that I need to work on and getting this to a much nicer finish than I normally do. I think I am going to start with the shoulder pieces because they're going to be the most work for sure. And it'd be good to get those done and out of the way. I think I'll do this in sections. I'm going to do this section first, then there, and then there, just to make it a little bit easier to deal with. I'm going to be using the Black Widow by AK, as you saw in the last video. That it turned out to be the one that I still prefer. And I'm just going to go in with the toothpick and fill in some of these spaces that I can see in the light. I knew from the very beginning that this inner corner was going to be something I'd need to work on. And in addition to that, there are a few small little spots need some filling. And I'll kick that off with the Insta set. I won't be using the file at this stage because it's too aggressive, so I'll be starting with the sanding block. This is a 120 grit. Just using a very light touch. I don't want to damage all the good parts that I have on there. I just really want to, as much as possible, focus on the new glue that I put on there. And then for that inside corner, I'm going to do the same thing I have done in the past, where I do a little bit of cutting with the knife. Be really careful not to hit your own finger in this situation. Just doing a very light touch. Be very careful. Just to get the main bulk of the glue out. And I'll go ahead and scrape into the corner, and still also being fairly gentle with this. I don't want to go so far that they dig a little trench in there and then I have to do it all over again. Just trying to get it to slide smoothly along the surface, taking out any of the irregularities. You can kind of feel anywhere that there's still a bit of a bump there, so I'll go back in and deal with it by cutting it out. And now go ahead and do the other side as well. It's very difficult to tell for sure what it's going to look like, but we'll give it a little bit of sand. This is where the light does come in handy in terms of finding any remaining problems that I need to deal with before, without having to go back and paint it gray again. I do see I think I see some issues in there. It's really difficult to tell, but we'll give it a little bit more of a scrape. This is the kind of situation everybody has to decide for themselves how far to go in terms of making the surface perfect or closer to perfect. And my goal with this project is to go a little farther than I would normally go. Just push it that little bit more. That's why I got the light and why I saved it to the end here rather than doing it as I go, just to give it a little bit more attention. A bit more of a sand there. Well, this is definitely the type of work that tests my patience anyway the most. You just feel like sometimes you just can't get it to do what you want it to do. I have this area here that I just filled in, but it seems to just still be a divot. So when that happens, it makes me wonder that either it's not being filled in properly, or it's so thin that I'm putting it in and then sanding it away again. It just reveals the hole. So the solution I found in the past is actually just to make it a bigger hole, make it a much more obvious thing that the glue can definitely get down into. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, just cut it out a little bit. The reason to test my patience is because I just did a lot of work to try and sand that out and carve it nicely, and now I'm digging it out again and starting again. It's definitely a challenging area, these inner corners. Just trying to push the glue in from the side so it doesn't trap a big air bubble beneath it. Okay, it looks like it's flowed into that space now, so go ahead and kick it off. Even still, I can see some divot in there, so I'm going to have to do a second round of glue filling, I think. Okay, a bit of experimenting here. Instead of using the knife to clean out that inner 90, I'm going to try a rotary tool with this Dremel, and I've got what I'm hoping is going to be a very gentle bit on there. Let's just see how this goes. I've never done this before, so we'll discover this together. Definitely required a very delicate touch to not wreck the other surface. Looks pretty good. I might just finish it off with the knife. I also have some of these sanding sticks, which are still soft but harder than the sponges. Sometimes they help just to get a flatter surface because they don't give as much. They might just sand into the corner a little bit better because they're stiffer. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good now. I won't know for sure until I paint it gray again, but it does look a lot better than it did. So I am going to go back in and do the other grits of sanding sponge just to get it down to a nice paintable surface. And I guess this was saying too, I'm not a perfectionist. I'm okay with a few dings here and there. Like I say, I'm trying to go a little further than I normally would just to see how I can push it. But ultimately, I don't really mind there being a few little dings and stuff like that because I consider it a mobile suit that's used and therefore has some wear and tear on it. I don't think I'm planning on doing any heavy weathering on this though, which is sort of unusual for me. I would normally do a weathering pass, but I'm going to see what it looks like just doing it straight painting. So that's why I'm being a little bit more particular about the little imperfections here. We'll save the top for last because it's the easiest. Basically, the front's going to be the same as the back, so I'll just do some work on the holes I can see and then go from there. Okay, I think I have the front up to the level I want it. Hopefully when I get some gray paint on there, it's going to look good. It's hard to tell for sure right now, but I'm feeling optimistic. The last thing I need to do is just the top, which is much easier compared to what I've been doing so far, just filling in a bunch of little holes and then sanding it back. Should be a lot easier. It's looking good. Like I say every time, it'll depend on how it looks when the gray paint is on there, but I think it's much better than it was. There might be a few little divots left over, who knows. These other ones, actually most of them look pretty good as is, so they might be fine. I'm going to go through all these little parts and figure out what needs to be done, but that's pretty simple, so I won't bore you with that on camera. Okay, I've done a once over on all the parts there, and now it's time to paint them gray and see how we did. Okay, I painted everything gray, and they're all looking good. These two more complex ones just need a little bit more love, and so I'm going to do that now, and then paint them gray again and see how they look. All right, definitely a lot of finicky work, but I think worth it in the end. I'm pretty happy with how things turned out. You know, I sort of have to settle with it's never going to be 100% perfect and then go from there, but that's part of hand building stuff for Gunpla kit bashing. I think I've taken it farther than I've ever taken it before. I'm really happy with that, and I think once I get the paint on there, it's going to look great. Thank you very much for watching. That is the end of this week's episode. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you give me a like on the way out, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.